How Chicago's 9/11 system collapsed under Mayor Johnson. In the city of Chicago, dialing 911 is becoming an act of faith. For a growing number of high-priority emergencies, the voice on the other end faces a nightmare scenario, scrambling to find anyone available to send. This isn't just a delay, it's a system strained to its breaking point, a crisis threatening the city's most sacred promise. For years, residents have shared stories of calls that seem to go into a black hole, but now that the crisis has reached a terrifying new depth, we're investigating the policies, budget priorities, and the critical staffing failures that critics say have left citizens to fend for themselves. In a city on the edge, who is coming to help you? Section 1. The first failure, the shrinking force. The heart of any 9/11 response is the responder, but in Chicago, that heart is under severe strain. The Chicago Police Department is shrinking. While the city's budget has line items for over 14,000 positions, the reality on the streets says vastly different. The department is short somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 officers from its budgeted strength. This isn't simply a line item, it's a gaping hole in the city's ability to protect people. The problem is a straightforward equation of attrition. Officers are leaving faster than they can be replaced. Retirements, resignations, and transfers to the suburban departments with less stress and better support have created a relentless drain of experience and manpower. Between 2017 and 2022, the number of sworn officers plunged by about 13%. That trend has created a workforce crisis that directly translates to 911 response. Fewer officers mean fewer patrol cars on the street at any given time. And fewer patrol cars means dispatchers are left staring at a screen, trying to find a unit to send to a shooting, a robbery, or a domestic violence call in progress. This isn't a new problem, but it has become a defining crisis of the Johnson administration. Critics argue that the political climate and a perceived lack of support from the city hall have only accelerated the exodus. The Fraternal Order of Police has been vocal about morale, pointing to policies that they see as undermining an officer's ability to do their job. And while Mayor Johnson's administration has touted an 8% drop in homicides in 2024, other violent crimes like robberies have surged. This creates a paradox for residents. They're told the city is getting safer in some respects, but their lived experience of calling for help and waiting, and waiting, and waiting, and waiting tells a different story. The department is so strained that in 2023, it spent over $200 million on overtime, often by canceling officers' days off just to maintain minimum staffing levels. This isn't just about numbers, it's about capacity. A police department operating in a constant state of deficit can't effectively respond to emergencies. And the first domino to fall in that scenario is the 911 system. Section 2, the second failure, the policy decisions. A shrinking police force is a crisis of resources, but a series of policy and budget decisions under Mayor Johnson have led critics to question the administration's priorities, arguing they've actively weakened the emergency response system. One of the most controversial moves was the decision to end the city's contract with ShotSpotter. This technology uses acoustic sensors to detect gunfire, pinpoint the location, and automatically alert police, often faster than a 911 call can even be made. For years, it was a key tool, especially in neighborhoods on the south and west sides most plagued by gun violence. Activists had long criticized the technology, and Mayor Johnson, fulfilling a campaign promise, moved to cancel the contract. The decision was met with fierce opposition from many aldermen who represent the very communities ShotSpotter was designed to protect. They argued that removing the technology was like taking the batteries out of the city's smoke detectors. The administration extended the contract to get through the Democratic National Convention, but the message was clear. A tool that police relied on for rapid deployment to shootings was being taken off the table. But maybe the most damning evidence of misplaced priorities comes from how existing officers are being used. A stunning 2024 report by Block Club Chicago and the Injustice Watch revealed a fundamental disconnect between what specialized police units are supposed to do and what they actually do. So-called rapid response officers, whose entire purpose is to answer emergency 911 calls, were found to be spending most of their time conducting traffic stops. In the first half of 2023, these units lodged nearly twice as many traffic stops as they did in 2019. At the same time, the share of their work dedicated to answering 911 calls plummeted from nearly half to just 10%. When leadership blamed staff shortages for slow 911 responses, their own data showed that hundreds of officers who should have been available for emergencies were instead being directed to pull over drivers, often for minor infractions, in a strategy that produced very few guns or arrests for violent crime. The choice to prioritize traffic stops over emergency response is a policy decision. It directs finite resources away from the most critical, life-threatening calls. When a family is hiding in their home after a shooting and calls 911 only to be told no one is coming, it's devastating. Learning that the officers who were supposed to respond were busy writing traffic tickets, infuriating betrayal of the public trust. On top of all that, Mayor Johnson's initial 2025 budget proposal included cutting 456 positions from the police department. While the total budget in dollars went up because of raises, the reduction in budgeted headcount sent a clear signal about the administration's long-term staffing priorities, doing little to build confidence that the manpower crisis would be solved. When the most basic function of a city, the promise that someone will come when you call for help, begins to fail, it affects everyone. If you believe that a reliable emergency response system is a non-negotiable part of a safe city and want to support an analysis that holds leadership accountable, take a moment to subscribe to this channel and ring the notification bell. Your support allows us to keep investigating these critical issues. Section 3. The human cost. The consequence of a faltering 911 system isn't measured in statistics, but instead in human tragedy. It's the small business owner watching a robbery unfold on a security camera, on the phone with the dispatcher who has no one to send. It's the victim of a domestic violence whose call for help is met with an agonizing delay. It's the sound of gunshots in the night, followed not by sirens, but by an unnerving silence. And the most shocking part of this failure is that the city itself can't accurately measure how bad the problem is. A bombshell report from the city of Chicago's Inspector General found that the police department's data on 911 response times is fundamentally broken. Officers are required by policy to log when they arrive on the scene, but the Inspector General found that nearly half of all dispatch calls, the crucial piece of information, was missing. Let that sink in. The city cannot tell you how long it takes for police to respond to half of its emergencies because the data isn't being entered. This isn't just a clerical error, it's a systematic failure of accountability. It makes it impossible to know which neighborhoods are being failed the most and prevents any real oversight of a core police function. Community groups have long worried that police take longer to respond in the Black and Latino neighborhoods. The Inspector General set out to investigate this, but couldn't because the data simply is not there. This all happens against a backdrop of shifting crime. While Johnson's administration rightly points to a decrease in homicides from their pandemic-era peak, other trends paint a frightening picture. Robberies and other violent crimes have pushed the overall violent crime rate above the 5-year average. And according to the University of Chicago Crime Lab, shootings are becoming more lethal, with a 45% increase in the rate at which shooting victims die, partially due to the spread of high-capacity magazines. So even if there are fewer shooting incidents, the ones that do happen are deadlier. This makes a rapid emergency response more critical than ever. Yet for tens of thousands of medical emergencies each year, it takes EMS crews longer than 6 minutes standard to arrive. And just like with the police, watchdog reports have found that data on ambulance response times is often incomplete, making the true scale of the delays. In conclusion, the crisis facing Chicago's 911 system isn't the result of a single policy or a single politician. It's a slow-motion failure born from a shrinking police force, questionable policy priorities, and a fundamental breakdown in accountability. The result is a city where the social contract is fraying. Mayor Brandon Johnson inherited many of these challenges, but his administration's decisions have, in the eyes of the critics, made the crisis worse. They focus on long-term, holistic solutions to crime, and it's not valid and a necessary goal. But those solutions take years, if not decades, to work. In the meantime, the immediate acute need for emergency response has been neglected. The administration is also facing serious political headwinds. The public rejection of the Bring Chicago Home referendum, a cornerstone of Johnson's progressive agenda, was seen by many as a rebuke of his leadership. With a massive projected budget deficit looming and a new costly pension bill for police and firefighters passed by the state, the financial pressures on the city are immense, making the prospect of fixing these deep, systematic problems even more daunting. A functioning 911 system is the bedrock of public safety. It's not a political talking point, but a lifeline. When that lifeline becomes unreliable, citizens lose faith not just in the police, but in the very idea of a functioning city. The questions for Chicagoans is no longer just about crime, but about whether the most basic system of a modern metropolis can survive.